My name is Nathan, and I discovered my ex-wife was living in my childhood bedroom when I drove past my parents' house to drop off a birthday card for my mother. Andrea's car was in the driveway, the same Honda Civic I'd bought her for our anniversary 3 years ago, before she decided that sleeping with my coworker was more exciting than our marriage. Before she told the divorce judge I was emotionally absent and financially controlling, code for working 60-hour weeks to pay for the lifestyle she demanded. I sat in my truck for a full minute, card in hand, wondering if I was having some kind of breakdown. We'd been divorced for 8 months. She got the house in the settlement, the one I paid for. She got alimony that ate up 30% of my income. What was she doing at my parents' house at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday? Then I saw her through the window, in my old room, hanging curtains. I drove away without delivering the card. That evening, I called my sister Emma. She lived in Portland now, far enough away to avoid our parents' drama, but close enough to stay informed. Please tell me I'm hallucinating, I said without preamble. Is Andrea living with Mom and Dad? The silence stretched too long. Nate. She is. She's actually living in my childhood room. It's complicated. No, it's not. My ex-wife is living in my bedroom at my parents' house. That's not complicated. That's insane. Emma sighed. She showed up about 3 months ago. Said she was struggling, couldn't afford the house payments even with the alimony. Mom felt bad for her. Mom felt bad for the woman who cheated on me. You know how Mom is. Andrea cried, talked about how she had nowhere to go, how she always felt more welcome in their home than anywhere else. Dad was against it at first, but... Another sigh. You know how he is too. I did know. My mother, Patricia, had always wanted a daughter who'd go shopping with her, who'd care about the things she cared about, decorating, social events, the country club. Emma had been a disappointment in that regard, more interested in rock climbing than roses. But Andrea? Andrea had played the part perfectly during our marriage. Brunches and book clubs and calling my mother Mom in that sweet voice that made Patricia melt. How long has this been going on? 3 months. They didn't tell you because they knew you'd be upset. Upset? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. My parents are harboring my cheating ex-wife in my childhood bedroom, and they thought I'd be upset. Nate, I tried talking to them, but Mom said, and I'm quoting here, Andrea's been more of a daughter to me than Nathan has been a son lately. The words hit like a physical blow. I've been distant since the divorce, true. But that was because every interaction with my parents had become about Andrea. How was Andrea doing? Was I sure I couldn't work things out with Andrea? Andrea had made such beautiful centerpieces for the church fundraiser. I have to go, I told Emma. Nate, wait. I hung up. For the next week, I threw myself into work. I ran a commercial real estate firm that specialized in distressed properties, buildings that needed major work, neighborhoods in transition. It wasn't glamorous, but I was good at seeing potential where others saw problems. More importantly, it kept me busy enough to avoid thinking about my ex-wife sleeping in my twin bed, surrounded by my high school trophies. Then my mother called. Nathan, we need to discuss Thanksgiving. What about it? Well, Andrea will be joining us, of course. She's family. I wanted to make sure you knew in advance so there wouldn't be any awkwardness. I sat back in my office chair, staring at the Seattle skyline. She's not family, Ma. We're divorced. She cheated on me. She's literally the opposite of family. Nathan, that's exactly the kind of attitude that drove her away in the first place. You need to learn forgiveness. She didn't get driven away. She chose to sleep with Brad from accounting. People make mistakes when they're unhappy. Maybe if you paid more attention to her needs. I hung up. It was becoming a habit. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I drove through my old neighborhood, really looking at it for the first time. Ranch-style houses from the 1960s, large lots, mature trees. It was zoned R1, single-family residential only, the kind of zoning that preserved neighborhood character, but also prevented any real development or change. As I drove, I noticed something else. For sale signs, lots of them. The Hendersons were selling. The Kims had already moved. The old Peterson place was empty, a lockbox on the door. An idea began forming. Crazy perhaps, definitely expensive, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I made some calls the next day. The neighborhood was struggling. Kids had grown up and moved away. Original owners were downsizing or dying. Property values had stagnated while taxes kept rising. It was exactly the kind of situation I specialized in, distressed properties with hidden potential. Within a week, I'd made my first purchase. The Peterson house, 3 doors down from my parents'. Cash offer, quick closing. The family was grateful. They'd been trying to sell for months. "What are you planning to do with it?" my business partner, Jerome, asked when he saw the paperwork. "Investment," I said vaguely. "Long-term play." Jerome knew me well enough to see there was more to it, but he also knew when not to push. Over the next 6 months, I became the most active buyer in the neighborhood. I used different LCs for each purchase, keeping my name off the public records. The Henderson's house, the empty duplex on the corner, the old McKinsey place with the huge oak tree I used to climb. Each purchase was strategic: corner lots, double parcels, properties that, when combined, would create assemblages large enough for serious development. I paid fair prices, sometimes above asking. I wasn't trying to steal from anyone. I was solving problems for families who needed to sell. My parents never noticed. They were too busy posting Facebook photos of family dinners with Andrea, too busy with Andrea's new job search funded by my alimony, too busy redecorating my old room to better suit Andrea's taste. I found that last bit out from Emma, who called me after a particularly awkward visit home. "She's redecorating your room, Nate." Like completely. Mom's helping her. They painted over the growth chart on the doorframe. The growth chart, where my father had marked my height every birthday from age 2 to 18. Gone, covered in whatever trendy gray Andrea had chosen. "Let them," I said. "It won't matter soon." What does that mean? Nothing. House Portland. By month 9, I owned 16 properties in the neighborhood, more than 40% of the total land area. The other investors I quietly brought in owned another 20%. Together, we controlled enough to make a serious proposal to the city. That's when I scheduled a meeting with the Planning Commission. Mixed-use development, I explained, spreading out the plans across the conference table. Retail on the ground floor, apartments above. Green space, walkable streets, affordable housing units to qualify for tax credits. We'll preserve the 3 historic houses, integrate them into the design. The commission was interested. The neighborhood had been bleeding residents for years. Property tax revenue was down. Crime was creeping up as houses sat empty. My proposal would revitalize the area, bring in young families, create jobs. "What about current residents?" one commissioner asked. "Full market value buyouts for anyone who wants to sell. Relocation assistance, and for those who want to stay, we'll work around them." But honestly, there aren't many left. It was true, the neighborhood was dying. My parents and a handful of others were holding onto a ghost of what used to be. My development would bring it back to life, just in a different form. The review process took months. Environmental studies, traffic analysis, community input sessions. I attended every meeting, though I kept a low profile. My company was the face of the project, not me personally. My parents, predictably, were oblivious. They were too busy with their new daughter to pay attention to city planning meetings or zoning notices. Andrea had started a small business, funded, I learned through the divorce lawyer grapevine, by a loan from my parents that everyone knew would never be repaid. The turning point came when the city announced a public hearing on the reasoning proposal. Every property owner in the affected area would be notified. The notice would include a map showing current ownership. I knew my parents would finally see what I'd done. But by then, it would be too late to stop it. The day of the hearing, I arrived early. The council chambers were packed, mostly with people I'd hired to support the project, but also curious residents and a few reporters who'd gotten wind of the story. My parents arrived 15 minutes late, looking confused. Andrea was with them, because of course she was. She was wearing jewelry I recognized, pieces I'd bought her during our marriage, pieces she'd supposedly sold to make ends meet. They found seats near the back. I watched from the corner of my eye as my mother opened the information packet, saw the ownership map, and went very, very still. The hearing was called to order. The planning director presented the proposal. The economic development team talked about job creation and tax revenue. Then it was time for public comment. My mother was one of the first to the microphone. "This is a travesty," she said, voice shaking. "This neighborhood has character, history. Families have lived here for generations. You can't just bulldoze it for some soulless development. Ma'am, the council president said gently, the developer has offered to purchase any properties at above market rates. No one's being forced out. But they're being pressured. My own. She stopped, catching herself. Someone has been buying up houses secretly, trying to force us out. Is that your objection? The councilwoman asked. The sales were voluntary, correct? No one was coerced. My mother's face reddened. It's manipulation. It's wrong. Other residents spoke. The few who opposed the plan talked about preservation and character. The many who supported it, including several who'd sold to me, talked about opportunity and revitalization. Then I stood up. Nathan. My mother's voice carried across the room. What are you doing here? I walked to the microphone, calm and professional. Council members, my name is Nathan Cross. I'm the principal investor in this project. The silence was deafening. I could feel my parents' stares burning into my back. I grew up in this neighborhood, I continued. I know every house, every tree, every crack in the sidewalk. And I also know that nostalgia doesn't pay property taxes. Memories don't fix leaking roofs or attract young families. This neighborhood is dying. We can preserve it in amber until it's nothing but empty houses and memories, or we can give it new life. This is revenge, my father's voice boomed from the back. You're doing this to get back at us. The council president banged his gavel. Sir, you'll have your turn to speak. I turned to face my parents. Andrea was between them, her face pale. This isn't revenge. This is business. I saw an opportunity to revitalize a declining neighborhood and create value for everyone involved. The fact that you chose to prioritize my ex-wife over your son is irrelevant to the economics of this proposal. We gave her a home when she had nowhere to go, my mother cried. She had a home. The one I paid for. The one she got in the divorce. If she couldn't afford it, perhaps she should have thought of that before destroying our marriage. The gavel banged again. Let's keep this to the zoning issue, please. I turned back to the council. I've submitted all relevant documentation. The economic benefits are clear. The community impact is positive. I urge you to approve this proposal. I sat down. The hearing continued for another hour. When it came time to vote, it wasn't close. 6-1 in favor of rezoning, with only the most conservative councilman voting against. The neighborhood would be rezoned. Development could begin as soon as we close on the remaining properties. After the vote, I headed for the exit. My parents intercepted me in the parking lot. Andrea hung back, for once having the sense to stay out of a family argument. How could you? My mother demanded. This is our home. And it still can be, I said evenly. I'll pay you triple what you paid for it. You can buy a nicer house in a better neighborhood. Everyone wins. This isn't about money, my father spat. This is about family, about roots. Family? I laughed, but it was bitter. You let my ex-wife live in my childhood bedroom. You told people she was more of a daughter than I was a son. You chose her over me, and now you want to talk about family? People get divorced all the time, my mother said. Mature adults find a way to coexist. Mature adults don't move their son's cheating ex into his childhood room and then act surprised when he objects. Andrea finally spoke up. Nathan, I never meet. Don't. I held up a hand. You made your choices. You all did. And I made mine. The difference is my choices are legally binding and council approved. I got in my truck, then rolled down the window for one last word. You have 90 days before construction starts. I suggest you use them to find a new place to live. All of you. 6 months later, the old neighborhood was gone. In its place, a vibrant mixed-use development was rising. Coffee shops and boutiques on the ground floor. Affordable apartments above. Young families moving in. Kids playing in the new park we built where the old Peterson place used to be. My parents sold to me, eventually. Not for triple, they held up too long, and I dropped my offer to merely double. They bought a condo across town, a nice place with a doorman and a view. Andrea? She vanished somewhere along the way. Without my parents' free housing and my alimony, which my lawyer successfully got reduced after proving she was living rent-free, she had to face reality. Last I heard, she'd moved in with Brad from accounting. I hope they're very happy together. Emma asked me once if I regretted it, if destroying our childhood neighborhood was worth it. I didn't destroy it, I told her. I transformed it, gave it new life. And if our parents had shown me a fraction of the loyalty they showed Andrea, Maybe I would have preserved their house, made it the historic centerpiece of the development. But they made their choice. She nodded, understanding. What about forgiveness? Forgiveness doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It doesn't mean subsidizing the people who betrayed you. It means moving on and building something better from the ashes. The development is thriving now. I kept one thing from the old neighborhood, that huge oak tree from the McKinsey place. It stands in the center of the new park, a plaque at its base, in memory of what was, in hope of what will be. My parents have never apologized. They've never admitted they were wrong to take Andrea's side. But sometimes I drive past their old house, now a thriving bakery with apartments above, and I see them through the window of the coffee shop next door. They look older, smaller somehow, diminished by their choices. They see me too sometimes. We don't wave. We don't speak. But in those moments, I think they understand. They chose my ex-wife over their son. They chose the past over the future. They chose comfort over truth. And I chose to build something new on the ashes of their choices. The bakery makes excellent croissants. I stop by sometimes, chatting with the young couple who runs it. They're grateful for the opportunity the development provided. They're building a life, a family, a future. In my old bedroom, where Andrea once hung her curtains, they store flour and sugar. Where my parents enabled betrayal, strangers now create sweetness. It's not revenge, it's poetry. And every time I bite into one of their croissants, I taste the future I built from the ruins of the past. It tastes like success. It tastes like vindication. It tastes like moving on.